So Elon came out and said that he thinks Twitter needs to be the most accurate source for truth, which is quite a goal. And then I think that Seth Dillon, the CEO of the Babylon Bee, made a really interesting comment on that. Twitter wrestles with a dilemma created by their commitment to keeping two promises. We will not censor anything truthful. We will not censor. This whole idea of truth and like accuracy versus free speech, because obviously there's a lot of non-true information that still counts as free speech. So I'm curious what you guys think about that comment.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of the things that with your interview with Majid, that was interesting. It's like, how many examples do we have to see of misinformation that later turned out to be accurate? I don't know. I mean, can you create an algorithm? Can Twitter somehow, fact check? Then we get into the fact checking and how problematic that is. It's a tough situation.
Yeah, I mean, the goal of having true information is obviously a great goal, but the goal of having free speech is also a great goal, but those two things are not the same, and both are very difficult goals to even be successful in one of those areas. And there is a little bit of friction between them, because if you're saying it's going to be the best source of accurate information, and false information it kind of gets into taking down false information, which is, we've gotten a taste of it this weekend with Kathy Griffin and h3h3 getting banned. Now that's impersonation. Impersonation is actually illegal, and there's certainly dangers of that. However, they're arguing satire. So, things are already getting dicey on like day 6. I don't know what day it is, day 5 or day 6 of Elon's reign.
Yeah. So if he's gonna make Twitter the most truthful source of information, that means that he would be most likely censoring what he considered disinformation. So we're back to the same idea of who are the fact checkers here. Is he going to have his own group of independent fact checkers? Is he going to actually like censor what he considers disinformation?
Well, he's been pushing a rebrand of Birdwatch into Community Notes, which you saw this funny quibble between him and Dorsey like this morning, where Dorsey was saying he thinks Community Notes sounds like a Facebook cheesy name, and Elon said no, Birdwatch sounds like a sketchy, like creepy dystopian name. And I do think that Community Notes is incredibly powerful, and it's similar to like a jury system on Minds. And so I think that you can leverage that kind of citation system to make sure that people understand what is true and what is not as much as possible with the power of the crowd. And so I don't think that the existence of that necessarily means that he would want to ban anything that isn't true. And maybe the notes feature would just help show when things are true and not true. But I just find it very I find his approach very odd with going after the whole permanent ban, like specifically saying, if you want to go to his post, Sean, specifically saying I'm going to permanently ban for I think it's this one. Going forward, any Twitter handles engaging in impersonation without clearly specifying parody will be permanently suspended.
Yeah.
Which is just interesting that he's coming out and using language like that, when a lot of what people were expecting was that we were going to be seeing like paths to redemption, and that permanent suspension was actually not really going to be a thing.
Right.
Well, yeah. So one of the things we brought up on the last podcast that we did last week was that $8 a month verification. And the way I read this when I initially saw it was, this is how they're going to prevent people, impersonators, from coming into the platform, starting accounts under people's names who are no longer on the platform, and then just paying $8 a month to get verified. That's kind of how I took this, because that's my biggest concern. If the $8 a month goes through and that's how you get a check mark, what are the checks and balances? People should not have the right to impersonate others. We see it on Twitter. There's a fake Donald Trump account that thousands of people think is his real account.
There's a new one every day that keeps blowing up, and people are just using it to grow huge channels. They're just pretending that they're Trump. But I mean, why didn't they just make it so that if you get verified, you can't change your name after you get verified, or you lose verification after you change your name?
He said that they were gonna add that after.
It's just funny that like this is waterfall development that they're doing. Like why did they rush so much only to create this huge controversy that it was totally unnecessary?
Yeah. But I mean, they have to have. I mean, that was the blue check mark. That was always the verification process, right? Like, you are who you say you are. And that's why a lot of accounts struggled to get that verification, because it was hard to pin down who was running it and, things of that nature. But, having that $8 a month, which I think is a good idea ultimately. Yeah, there needs to be a way to police that so people aren't impersonating others. So I get it. It makes sense.
Rather than banning, Kathy Griffin and Ethan Klein, why not just remove their verification? Like, they were obviously they were towing the line with, it not being a prank, and they were actually trying to cause chaos, for sure. I think that's obvious. And I think it's totally legitimate that they get punished somehow for what they did. Obviously they were going to do that, though. I mean, Kathy Griffin is Kathy Griffin and Ethan is Ethan. But now they just have fuel. I don't see how it was useful, and they could have just removed the verification. And then he has to go and say, we're going to permanently ban. Like, he went like,
they kind of proved a good point, to be honest. Like,
seems to be a bit of a reactionary, doesn't he? Like, you can see that he has real emotion on display. Like, that's a reactionary move to just like ban Kathy Griffin.
It's totally authentic. Like, some people are giving him a hard time because, and he even labeled himself like Twitter tech support or whatever it was. Some people are giving him a hard time for being too much in the weeds. Like, I actually respect the fact that he gets involved in the product, answers random questions from random people about little, characteristics of the app. And he's not just like sitting on his throne in the way that most Silicon Valley CEOs do. Like, most CEOs stay disconnected from the community. Like, to be honest, like, I behave very similarly to this on Minds. Like, people will tag me, people will be trolling me. I'll reply right to them. I don't, I'll share their troll. Like, it's all confronting it head on. So that's all cool. But it's just funny, that this is the initial wave of dev that they focus on. I understand verification is a very important thing to start on, but meanwhile, staying silent about a lot of the other issues that people really care about, namely transparency, algorithms, reinstating accounts. And I know he did say that there's a content moderation council coming, and I'm sure that they're working hard on all of that stuff. So I would imagine there's going to be something happening. But I'm becoming more skeptical that Twitter is going to be meaningfully different. It'll be different. It'll be better than a lot of the other big tech, but I do not think that they're going to open source the code. I
don't either.
I'm retracting my prior optimism.
I don't even think it's going to be necessarily full free speech.
I mean, he already said himself, like, that hate speech isn't allowed, and like, that's just how do you do that? You can't do that. That's
You
not
can't,
free
yeah.
speech. You can't say that. That's the whole point. It's literally the whole
Yeah,
point
right.
of free speech.
Does it count
And it
as-
sucks. And it sucks because I look like the asshole because I'm like, oh, you gotta hate speech.
Gotta
should
have hate
stay. It's
speech,
like, I don't
man.
want hate speech. Like I want hate speech less than anyone else. But like it's such a subjective term to who's defining it. So it's like who's defining it,
Yeah.
and it's all that matters. And like if he's defining it, then I don't know.
That's
I was
exactly the
surprised to
thing.
see him say that.
Well, he's
I was
just
kind
not
of let down.
approaching the arguments. You can sort of tell that he hasn't. I mean, I think he's thought about a lot of this pretty deeply, but in terms of hate speech and free speech and kind of how they interoperate and how they coexist, like he hasn't thought about it in the context of our research paper, censorshipeffect.com, for anyone who hasn't read it, showing how free speech is the antidote to hate speech empirically through lots of research showing that censorship causes increased radicalization. That's the argument that he needs to be bringing up, as opposed to saying, oh, no, we're not going to have hate. Like he's backing himself into a corner with the ADL and all of those people that's going to be very difficult to come out of.
Yeah, that's true. I was listening to so go ahead, Jack. Sorry.
I was just going to say that's the thing no one is really talking about, which is how do you like fix hate speech? Like, we just fix it. You can't just ban it and be like, that's never going to fix it. That's just going to, that's like sweeping it under the rug, acting like it's not there. It just festers. You have to, people have to deal with it. So like no one's talking about that because no one wants to, except for guys like, Daryl Davis. And there's very few people who are willing to like really put in the work to try to like help somebody who's got, some crazy beliefs. But that's really what has to happen. It's like mental health and communication, not isolation and
cancel culture.
That's a key angle. It's like fix the problem. Start to look at people's mental health, bringing up, you don't even hear that phrase, fix hate speech. It's always get rid of hate speech, or it's people saying, or ban it, or people saying, oh, well, what is hate speech? Like it's, but the definitions absolutely matter. And that's where it'll be interesting to see what they come out with in terms of a content policy. So let's look. So meanwhile, while all this is happening, you've got somewhat of a migration happening out from Twitter, mostly of people who hate Elon and actually want more censorship. And so if you could go to the next tab, Sean, with Alex Franas. So you've got the Mastodon may not replace Twitter, but at least has better leadership. So bring up that photo bigger. So this is Mastodon doesn't have a CEO. It's a nonprofit, but I think that this is a CEO of like of a company that maybe is built on top of Mastodon. And for anyone who doesn't know, Mastodon is a federated social network that is open source, but their core team is very pro censorship. So you can see him saying, Nazis are bad. I don't want to give them a platform for recruiting. And then, just sort of the same age-old argument between someone on the right or alt-right, or, maybe this person is a Nazi. I have no idea, or maybe not. But regardless, this is the age-old argument that is just a totally unproductive take on the whole situation. So, this is what's happening. Mastodon is absorbing a lot of the journalists and, the old intelligentsia of Twitter because they're all disillusioned with Elon. And meanwhile, you have people going to Mastodon, which is pretty much the same ideology as Twitter, though it is built on, I would argue, a better infrastructure because it's at least open source. But it's really interesting that this is, and then also that other site, Tribal, which is called Tribal, and they're saying that they're going to censor, everything.
Yeah.
So this is where people are migrating to. They're not, really, it's a migration away from free speech. But then simultaneously you have, Ethan and Kathy saying, oh, this isn't free speech, Elon, which maybe they even do have a little bit of an argument on that. But it's like, for some reason, the people leaving Twitter, it seems like they don't know what they want. It's like they want free speech, but they don't want free speech.
Yeah. Yeah. I really liked your solution, Bill, of taking away their Twitter verification. The more I think of that, like, because impersonation is a real problem. Like, you can argue, Kathy and h3h3, they can argue that it's not, but it really is. But yeah, the permanent ban, probably not a good idea. And then also raises a question with how many satire accounts there are, like, when you're looking at stories, when you're looking at content and stuff, sometimes it's really hard to know what is real and what isn't. And, the accounts are not required to have satire on them. So sometimes, I've fallen for this before, where I see like a really bad take and I didn't realize it was satire, like, what's the answer there? Do we just, can those accounts then get verified? Because now it looks like a verified person making wild statements.
I think they can. I mean, Tim brought up the suggestion, just do like a verified badge with like a jester hat on it.
Yeah. That's a really
or
good
some
idea.
which gets into kind of subsets of badges. It's like verification is one thing, but then there's other types. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I look at Dankula. I mean, Dankula is OG on doing this kind of stuff. I mean, he was going viral for like the past year, changing his name and like making people think that he was some sort of I forget what were, Sean, you probably know better than I do, what some of the pranks he pulled this year.
There's so many, but it's not just Dank. I've seen other blue checks do it. Yeah, where they'll change their name to. But I guess, like, in the case of Dank, though, I didn't really see him impersonating others, but I do see like funny, like,
I'm not saying impersonating, but it's the same argument. Like, Ethan
whatever's
will
trending,
make the same argument that, and I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that Ethan put satire in his banner and bio, but he didn't put it in his name. And it's like Elon was trying to say you have to put the words parody in the name.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's something weird going on with that, which, again, it's just it's just chaos, and it seems like he's kind of getting pulled in all of these different directions, and I don't know. I think he needs to focus on the core principles first, and have firm stances on some of these core principles, and then build from there. Yeah, but in any case,
the one of the things that you brought up with the interview with Majid that I thought was very interesting, I didn't know this. Facebook Messenger is the #1 source for child pornography on the planet, which I was like kind of just blown away by that. What, like, Bill, like, from an engineering side, Majid brought up a really good point. He's like, if I put up something that's deemed information or it's political or whatever the case, like, the platform's able to like label that and flag that immediately. Why are they having such an issue with, like, terrible content such as that? And what's the issue there? How are they able to like silence speech so quickly, but when it comes to, like, the dredges of the internet, it's like harder?
Yeah, I mean, well, it depends on how sophisticated your AI is and like computer vision for processing and like detecting these different images. So, and obviously I think that Twitter and Facebook and big tech typically have, super advanced tools for doing that. So yeah, I don't really know the answer. I mean, I know Eliza has been going hard after Elon for kind of not bringing up the issue for the first week or so. But I mean, I think that they are decent at it. I don't like what's interesting. I haven't heard from Eliza. Like, I don't know how bad the problem actually is on Twitter. But I mean, they do have tools. So I'm kind of I'm not fully understanding your question. Like,
It's
you're
just,
saying why is the problem so bad? Assuming they have really good detection tools.
correct. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. Maybe Twitter's tools aren't as good as Facebook's or something. But
Gotcha.
it's hard. I mean, we luckily, have, almost none of that content historically. But we don't really have advanced computer vision tools to detect it. So we're relying much more so on the community at this point. I think Eliza's big gripe with Twitter is that even in their report system, they don't have like specific categories for that kind of stuff. For anyone who doesn't know who I'm talking about, Eliza Blue, she's like a very prominent child sex trafficking kind of expert, because she was a victim herself, I believe. And so she's really pushing big tech to take care of that problem. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, because it's very strange. Like, if you tag people, certain people like get flagged immediately, or on YouTube, like your video is automatically like, if you say the wrong words, or if you say something that they deem, like the lab leak theory, like it used to be, like they would take you down immediately. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just interesting. Yeah. And
well, I guess what I'm saying is that, just quickly, yes, Facebook Messenger is one of the highest volumes of child porn in the world, but I'm pretty sure that they're good at catching it. So I think that it's not like it's just rampantly running wild constantly. Like, I think that they, when they take it down, they have to report it. And so that's how these statistics are known, because the reports of child sex trafficking are coming from Facebook Messenger. So maybe that was misconstrued with what I was saying. It's not like it's just this. It is a huge issue, but it's not that it's active child porn. It's child porn that has been taken down and reported.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You had some, Jack?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it kind of brings to a weird question where it's like people generally don't want Facebook, monitoring all the messages to restrict like speech, but when it comes to something like child porn, people do, or maybe they don't, but you do want them to like be acting fast and taking that down. So it's like it's like, then it just gets into the question. It's like, should Facebook have the access at all into those messages? Because it's like I kind of get torn myself.
Definitely not. Like, definitely not. And I think that even Eliza kind of is very clear and resonates with us on, thinking the end-to-end encryption by default is totally necessary. It protects everybody more. You can't sacrifice, people's privacy for, the greater good.
Well, that's where all the laws kind of focus. Like, they're trying to. They use the child porn as like the reason that you need these like intense surveillance and backdoors and all these things. So yeah, I mean, Bill, what would you say is like the best argument for why encryption by default is going to be better in the long run for a specific problem like child porn?
I mean, it's just a general principle that compromising people's encryption and privacy is gonna, potentially make everybody like less safe overall, whether that's from government surveillance or even from big tech getting hacked and then, all of your stuff getting compromised. So I don't think that talking about child porn specifically is even useful. It's more so the people that fixate on trying to convince you to give up your privacy for, to save the children. That is sort of I think a disingenuous way to approach it. There's all kinds of like horrible things that are illegal and can happen, but trying to kind of use that emotional debate tactic, I think is actually really slimy, and it's not protecting the children. And that's what Eliza's really going after. She's like, everybody's so fixated on like hate speech and all of these issues, that not to say that they're not problems, but like there's all kinds of public, according to her, I haven't searched Twitter to find their active child abuse situation yet. It'd probably put you on a list just for searching that. But
Exactly.
she seems to say that there is a current problem. And so, yeah, let's attack like what's public and go after that. It seems like there's plenty of work to be done there, but yeah, it seems like barely anybody's even talking about that. Everybody would much rather talk about the culture war than, child exploitation on Twitter.
Right. And that was Majid's point. It's like they use that wedge issue as a battering ram to then police other things, which is, it's just an interesting thing. It's like, of course, no one wants terrible illegal things on social media or the internet. It's very similar to like the Patriot Act, where it's like we got to give up our freedoms to keep us safe, and it's like it's like a fear tactic almost. But yeah, it's an interesting topic you guys got on.
And I hope that I hope that Twitter encrypts their messages. It's like we hear more about the paid DMs feature, which is coming to Twitter. Not a peep about encryption so far, when that would have been a very easy thing to talk about. Yep. So, how much you want to bet it's just like a huge technical complexity?
We know that it is.
We know that it is. And Twitter also just revamped their whole DM system with like a new UI, and so they probably just put like millions of dollars in that. And I don't know. I don't want to speculate too much, but it's just frustrating that, and everybody is so bleary-eyed. And again, I am sort of two minds of it as well. It's like it's still good that there is new power structure in Twitter, but it's just you don't there's no reason to put all your eggs in one basket. Why are you going to trust when there's no reason to? All we have to do is look at Tesla. Tesla is probably what Twitter is going to turn into. A good company that does certain good things for the world, but it's still a dystopian surveillance AI nightmare. And just look, Elon has not been transparent about Tesla's AI. Why is he going to do it with Twitter? And I was reading over.
I've always had a feeling that the whole reason he bought Twitter was, to train the AI. Not even. This is all just smoke and mirrors with the verification. If you listen to his TED Talks and stuff, that's what his goal is. His goal is to create the best AI system in the world. He thinks everyone's going to have a personal robot that can just, do everything for you. And that's what he's trying to do with the cars. And but what he needs is training data, and Twitter has probably the best training data about, humanity
inside the house,
for better or worse. But
yeah, exactly. Because your location in your house, in your movements in your house, because Tesla has all of the car data, but Tesla is not in everybody's pocket yet.
Right.
And now Tesla is about to be in everybody's pocket. And again,
they're getting everybody's thoughts, at least the people who post on Twitter, they're getting emotion. They're getting so much. Facebook and Twitter definitely have the lead, I would say, in terms of what you'd
cultural
want to build it, what you would want to build an AI machine that represents like humanity. And that's scary because, you know, you talk about people always saying how toxic those places are. So if that's what we're training the AI with, then, you know, that scares me, man.
I don't even have a problem with training the AI. Like, you know, we train machine learning models on mines for.
Yeah, that's like a microcosm of it.
For detecting spam and whatnot. But like, so like training AI is not an inherently bad thing. It just has to do with the method with which it's happening and the transparency of how it's happening. And, you know, there's just none of that. And he's not trying to give it up. I mean, I'm sure that he's justifying it, and, you know, to say that, oh, if Tesla open sourced its AI training models, then everybody on the planet could be at risk, because then they could create the weaponized AI that's going to destroy humanity. Though, you know, go
Was
ahead.
that your Elon voice or what
Yeah, that was.
I don't know what that was.
What I would argue, though, and to Jack's point, like anytime they run these experiments with like the communities, so-called, you know, training the AI, it always ends up in a disaster. And the AI is saying like the word Nazi and daddy and a bunch of other stuff, you know, like it'd be interesting to see if like I think it was it Google's done this, you know, where they've worked with their AI to, you know, respond to certain things. But anytime it's kind of like open to the public, it seems like it's a disaster. I don't know.
No, I disagree. I mean, it's going to keep getting scary accurate, and
Really?
they're going to, yeah, it's going to, those, you know, that with an open model where anybody can like talk to the bot, you know, I don't know. I remember that thing that happened with Microsoft where it got kind of like trolled, but the more data, the better for these models. And it's all going to become super personalized. And, you know, a lot of, if you listen to the former Tesla head of AI, who was just on Lex's show the other day, I think his name's like Andre Karpathy or something like that. He just left Tesla, but, you know, he thinks that it's just gonna become indistinguishable. There's already bots that are passing the Turing test, and people get tricked, and so you really need to know like how to engage with these bots. And yeah, I mean, and all the WeChat reference, like I don't know why he's so obsessed with WeChat. Like why are we like modeling after WeChat? There's in multiple circumstances, Elon has been saying how, oh, you know, we need a WeChat of the West, which for anyone who doesn't know, WeChat is like Chinese surveillance app, which is the everything app.
Right.
And
I mean, I think it's a great app. It's just about, can it be easily controlled, you know, by someone, and do you trust who's controlling it?
But say that,
right?
You know, like I don't understand why
he's not talking about the key part. He's not talking about the key ways to make it so that it's not vulnerable to that type of thing, really, which is like the open source and the encryption and all that stuff.
Is, and he knows this. I'm trying to understand if he's playing 4D chess or not, because when you have these conversations enough and you go through the arguments, you inevitably end up at end-to-end encryption, open source, decentralization. And maybe he knows that that's where it goes, and he doesn't necessarily want to do that right now. So maybe that's why he's not bringing it up. Or, I mean, I don't know, because he's thought about these things to a certain degree, but I mean, don't like bringing up WeChat as like the model without bringing up the risks of that, and without bringing up that, okay, yeah, we need WeChat, but it's got to be end-to-end encrypted, totally transparent, you know, and this is the plan to achieve that over the next few months. This is what, like, I posted to him over the weekend, like, hey man, can you just post a plan for this?
Yeah.
Like, rather than just like randomly posting about, like, he posted about how verifications were getting paid for like 15K, and it was this corrupt thing at Twitter where their employees were basically selling verified badges like under the table. And he confirmed that. He just said, yup, as if, and like, this is like the first major corruption case that he has confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically just confirms it by saying, yup, and then nothing else. Meanwhile, there's all of this other stuff that everybody is chomping at the bit to understand what is happening behind, under the hood at Twitter. And it's just, it seems like maybe it's just an overwhelming amount of sketchy stuff that they don't even know how to handle. But I just don't know why he would respond to that one. So what do you guys